Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next episode on learning to do things with PySense. Today, we're going to be covering creating and deleting users as well as managing groups. So we'll start with creating users. So what we have here is a CSV file that you could create for your own self and your own use case. We've created a couple of different columns. We have email, which is the email address of our user, role, which is just a string representation of their role, their first name, last name, and which groups they should be in. So you can see that if they want to be in multiple groups, I've chosen to delineate it with a pipe, but you can use whatever other delineator you would like. You'll see where that's reflected in the code. So let's go ahead and jump to our script for adding users. And let's walk through this. So we're going to import PySense as well as our PySense roles. We'll also have to import the CSV library to make reading the CSV a bit easier. We're going to authenticate by file. And then we're just going to check to make sure that these groups are there. And I'll also show you how to add groups. So we have this list of group names, and we're going to iterate through those group names and just basically ask PySense, hey, does this group exist? And if it exists, then cool, great. If it's not, then we can just go ahead and make sure we add it. So once we've done that, now we're going to go to our new users CSV file. We're going to go ahead and read that in through our csv.dictReader method, which is just going to make it easier for us to parse through this. Now we can iterate. For each row in our reader, we want to do the following things. First, we need to go ahead and grab that person's user group. So we're going to do pyclient.getGroups by name and pass this an array of group names, which we can do by using row groups and then splitting on the pipe delimiter. The cool thing about this dict reader is that it makes it so that we can access each attribute in a row by its column header. So we can grab the value in this row for groups, not by its index, but by its actual column name, which makes it a little more flexible going forward. So once we've got those user groups, then we're going to go ahead and add user. If we take a look at this add user method, we'll notice that it has two required fields and then a couple of optional ones. So the two required ones are first off the email address, and second is the role. This should be a role enum like we talked about in our earlier videos. And then it has a couple of optional parameters. Username, if you don't provide a username, the username that PySense assigns is just their email address. And then you can also assign things like first name, last name, which groups you want to add them to, etc. So here we're going to add user. Here we're going to do their role. Their PySense role that we're going to do is we're going to grab that by checking the role value in our row. And then we're going to also give them a first name, last name, and some user groups. So let's go ahead and look at the current state of our installation. We don't have any users here besides some current ones, and we also don't have any of those groups that we want to create. So let's go ahead and run our script. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and check our groups. And you can see that not only have our groups created, but we can actually see that they should have the correct users in them based on the number breakdown, but we can also verify our users as well. Let's go ahead and refresh here. And we'll see our three new users, and we can also see that they're in the correct groups and with the roles that we wanted. Let's go ahead and jump back. Now let's talk about deleting those users. So again, a lot of the stuff following, authenticate, open this new user's CSV file. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through each row in our CSV file, and we're going to grab the email for that person, and we're going to grab that user. This is the user we're going to delete. Let's make sure that that's not none. So long as we actually did get a user, and if we did, we'll go ahead and append it. And if it was none, then we can just print a little message that says, hey, we didn't get a user for this email, just FYI. So once we've gone through and added all those users to this users to delete array, then we can just call pyclient.delete users, and it'll delete all of these users in one go for us. So let's go ahead and run this script. And let's jump back. And we'll see that if we refresh, all of our new users are gone. So there we go. Easy, quick ways to add and delete users. Now, while there are quick ways to do things, that script could run into a couple of issues. If somebody misenters a group name and it gets corrupted and there's a typo, there could be an issue. If you try to add a user that already exists, there could be an issue. So actually, let's watch that. Let's run this twice. So let's go ahead and run and create our users. So we've created our users, but now if we try to run it again, we're going to get this error, existing user. So we can see that this user already exists in the system. So that's a problem. So This script is a little bit more robust, and I kind of want to use this time to show you how to build more robustness into your script. So here's a sample script for creating users. We start with a header at the top to kind of let people know how to use it. So we also have some options here. So when a user is going to be added to a group that does not exist, what should we do? So maybe we just want to create a new group with that group name. Or maybe that's a result of somebody fat fingering something and we don't want to create that group. We actually just want to throw us an error and let us know like, hey, there's an issue. Let's look at what to do when a user to be added is already found. So we have a couple of options that we've created here. Maybe we want to update that user to whatever these settings are, or maybe we just want to skip it and say, maybe we're rerunning this multiple times because our create group threw an error and we just want to skip any users and move on. Or do we want to throw an error? Maybe we want to know anytime that we're trying to add a user with this script that doesn't exist, and we can set that to error. We also added a couple of caveats. You should always make sure those groups have unique names. You can name groups the same thing in PySense, but since we're just grabbing those groups by name, we wouldn't know which ones we were grabbing. The script will just end up grabbing one of them at random. You also want to make sure you don't have any weird white spaces in your CSV. That can also cause issues when you're trying to look up names, as they are white space sensitive. So let's look at the actual script. A lot of boilerplate at the top that we're already familiar with. Plus, we also put these two options at the top to make it very easy for somebody to go and change the behavior of this script. And we're going to go ahead and go through, open our new users, read the dictionary. And now the first thing we're going to do is take our groups that we were given, split them into this group names array. And now we want to check and see if each of those group names exist. So we're going to get each group. And if that group doesn't exist, then we're going to check that create group parameter. If create group is true, then we'll just go ahead and add that group. But if it's false, then we'll throw an error, let them know we couldn't find a group with this name, and go ahead and exit the script. So assuming we've gone through that, now we're going to go to the user groups. Now we're going to go to pyclient.getGroupsByName. We're going to grab all of those user groups since we've already ensured that they exist. Otherwise, we would have errored out. And we're also going to go ahead and grab this. We're going to go and check and see if the user that we want to create already exists. So pyclient.getUserByEmail will feed it the email address. So if the user exists, if the user is not none, then we should look for what we should do on a found user. So if the action is to update, then we can use this user.update method. So we can take the user and call this update method, which is kind of similar to the add method, add user method in the parameters it takes, except all of them are optional because these are just the fields that we're going to update. So we're going to update their role name or their first name or their last name or their groups to whatever we were given. Else, if they indicated that they want to skip, then we can just do a continue and we'll jump to the next line, or we can print an error. If the user is none, which means it doesn't exist, then we just create the user with that same string that we had above. And you can see that how this is a much more robust script. It has a lot more error checking. It has a lot more capabilities. And so these are the things you should also think about when you're building out your automation. That's all for this. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.